Okay, Nanda, thank you so much for meeting with me here today. Thank you for giving me some of your time. We're meeting at this beautiful space, the 1860 Heritage Center.
Long overdue.
Yes, and you took me around and showed me. It's absolutely, I'm so glad that I came. It's a beautiful space, and it acts as maybe a second repository to the document center, the Tuli. Yes. So, what was your contribution to all of this, and why is this space so special to you?
When I first opened, I was one of the board of directors. I also donated all my anti-apartheid cartoons. And then the place was shut down for political reasons. Just before some election a few years ago, they needed the votes, so they gave it back to the Indian people.
Yes.
But they still have to recover a lot of the stuff that was donated in the first place. I'll have to speak the truth if you interview.
Yes. Go for it, Dad. You do you. Yeah. So, why is this a place that all people of Indian origin should visit and be proud of? Why, in your opinion?
It's very important to have this place, and it needs to be sustained. It needs to still exist and remain, because there the cancel culture. Not many people know that Indians were, let's leave out the indentured Indians who struggled and strived and did everything to help build this province and the city. But we'll go straight to the Indians who were at the Rivonia tribe.
Yes.
The Indians are a minority, but they were the biggest group in that tribe. They were the freedom fighters that fought for the freedom of this country. But if you look at Parliament today, you'll hardly find an Indian. Yusupa just passed away, and Freddy Jinwala passed away a few months ago. There's nothing left. There is a cancel culture.
Yeah.
There's no sign that we did anything. I was an anti-apartheid black political cartoonist. And now I'm not seen as black anymore. I used to be black. I was Steve Biko black. Now now I'm just
A different shade.
I'm brown.
You're brown. You're just a generic brown now.
Yeah.
Okay, and how has your art helped platform some of your causes and making, making these invisible identities come to the forefront?
I don't want to say my art helped bring about freedom, but it did play a role. I mean, political cartoonists to say things that make other people think.
Yes.
And there was a thesis done at the University of Cape Town, where they picked three cartoonists, myself, Shapiro, and Madam Eve, and they looked at the history and how we affected changes in this country, and my cartoons were the forefront of that.
Yes.
And they said my cartoons were not gag cartoons; they were like serious, political commentary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if I made any changes, but I did try.
Yes, and spoken like a very humble person, artist. So, where do you think do you think that art can make a difference?
Art can make a big difference. I'm just doing a young artist program with kids.
Yes.
There's 1 billion neurons in the brain.
Yeah.
And most of that is shut off, and we need to reopen it.
Yeah.
And that's why in the Young Artist program, every morning we start with Tai Chi, or dance, or yoga. Even music, opens up the motor, auditory, and visual cortices. Once
Yes.
the cortex is open,
Mm.
they start to think. And that is so important.
And that doesn't really fly well in terms of Western art teaching. The Western
Yeah,
art teaching is all about
well,
skill, right?
I just had a conversation with my art teacher. Let's do the dance
Okay.
after the art lesson. I said, no, it's important to do it before the art
Right.
lessons because we
Right.
need to open the door.
Yes. And that's the difference between Western thinking and what we consider Eastern thinking, is that the mind body is one unit of uh, of the being, the
Yes.
complete holistic
Yeah.
forming. So that's what you're saying, that even in creative endeavor, we need to access our brain, we need to breathe properly, we need to, and that all influences talent, which completely flies in the face of Western teaching, where you go and sit in a class and you just start drawing and you learn how to do perspective and you learn how to do shapes and all of that.
I find Western teaching is very, very limited.
Yes.
Their, their intellectual level stopped at the Industrial Revolution, the 19th century, 18th century,
Mm.
and they thought they had made it. Uh, and also their achievements are how many wars they won. When they celebrate victories, World War One, World War Two, Battle of Waterloo, and stuff like that.
Yes.
You know, that's the level of thinking. Yet they could think better, but they are so. Uh, one of the most divisive things is nationalism and religion that stops us from reaching those 100 billion euros. We don't get to use it because we're so stuck in those barriers, religious barriers, or whatever.
Yes.
So we don't need to get out of that box. That's why I mentioned trotters and beans and why
Yes.
I can draw, I can do cartoons, I can do animation, I can paint, I can render with pen and ink.
Yes.
I can do the same rendering that the guy who draw Batman and Robin can do. I can do it, and I've taught my students. Uh, the reason I was able to do it is not because I'm a genius, but because I opened up the rest of my neurons. I let it.
Right.
While other people have it all closed.
Right.
That's the difference. That's why I do what I do.
So for you, being creative is not just about a skill, learning a skill and applying the skill. It's more about knowing yourself as a
I've
person.
seen artists painting watercolors, landscapes, but it's what you just see and that's it. Or you see Rothko painting a blank canvas, brown,
Okay.
or with a black the
Jackson
bottom.
Pollock.
Yes, and yet you could do far more with your artistic talent by using your thinking capacity. You can make the world a better place.
So I take it you're not a minimalist or an
Uh,
abstraction.
I could be a minimalist.
Yeah.
I am a minimalist when I do one-liners.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
I could make a loaded, I could give you a loaded answer in a one-liner.
Yes,
I'm,
I like that.
yeah.
That very abbreviated type of way,
Yes.
saying a lot in
Yes.
just a little.
Yes.
Right? So, just to put some context for people that are going to watch this interview, Trotters and Beans is your book that's coming out. Is Beans and Trotters or Trotters? Trotters and Beans, right. So, Trotters and Beans is your new book. And the analogy behind that is that Trotters and Beans was a very kind of meager meal prepared, but one that's highly delicious that I still remember. So your analogy is that you, Indian people, the Indian identities as a collective we're talking about, because Indians are very heterogeneous group. There's a lot of us, and we have different religions, different, places we live, different economic sectors. So, but if you look at the Indian collective, we can make specifically those that really struggled, that came from poorer economic sectors. We struggled, but we made the best of what we had. So tell us more about this analogy and your book.
Okay. I call my book Trotters and Beans, and I said talking tribe and drawing the truth.
Yes.
The reason I chose Trotters and Beans is I used whatever material that was available, and I created art.
Mm-hmm.
And the community I came from did the same. They used whatever means available to cook a meal. If the white landlord threw them the offals, they would grab it and not put it in a pot and boil it. They would actually cook it with other ingredients like dough or beans,
Yes.
uh, tripe and dough, trotters and beans, cabbage and the cabbage and mutton used to be the thrown away
Yes.
ribs
Yes.
and
The
fat.
short ribs, all the
Yes,
gristly,
yeah.
hard bits.
And that's a delicious meal.
That's the best. You're making me hungry.
Yeah. And it's the best fine dining in South Africa.
Yes.
Durban curry is the best
Right.
curry in the world. I know, I travel the world, I know.
And you feel that's testament to the make, do, and mend mentality of Indian people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I call my book Trotters and Beans because of that. The thing is, when I paint a watercolor, watercolor, if you don't control it, you could get one dirty color. If you mix all the color, you get one dirty.
Brown, don't you?
Yes, yeah. So, bent umber and Prussian blue will give you black. So,
Right.
so you can get one dirty color. But if you paint in layers,
Yes.
you can keep all those colors
pure,
and you can create your watercolors by painting backwards and retaining your white spaces.
And that's almost like a flipping your brains. I always tell my
Yes.
students, like, to be able to consider negative, consider layering and working in reverse, it's like a bit of a brain flip, and lots of students struggle with that.
You got to preserve your negative spaces.
Yeah.
And you got to keep that in mind when you paint.
And let the white of the page come through so that you keep those radiant highlights.
Yes. Yeah. So when the curry is being cooked, the Durban curry, no matter what kind of meat is being cooked, I'm not talking about any kind of meat, but even though the meat was from offals, but they were basically lamb, sheep.
Yeah.
So it was mutton, so it kept within
its flavor.
The boundaries as well. Because most of the Indians they came from Hindu, Muslim, so it wasn't beef or it wasn't pork.
Okay. Right.
So it was basically mutton.
Yeah.
And when they cooked it in stages where they preserved every ingredient. So you got the taste and flavor of all ingredients.
Yes, the cabbage,
the meat did not taste like onions.
Yes.
Everything, the onions was already killed right from the start with the braising of the masala.
Yes, it's already released all its.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So all those flavors are kept, and that's how you do a watercolor.
Yeah. The layers.
The layers, the painted layers, and you cook with layers. So that is a real art form. And these people, though they were hungry, they did not just throw it into a pot and boil it and eat it, or make a potjie course.
Yeah.
It was all done with real care, love and tenderness and creativity.
Okay. Now back to beans and trotters and beans. What are you wanting? This could be possibly like a biography. It is going to be a biography, coming together of all your work. But you have been an integral person in our South African landscape in terms of the Indian community in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal specifically. What do you want this book to represent in terms of your story as well? Because your art lives with you. It's not. It's an extension of you. So what do you want?
Trotters and Beans is my story, but it's not just my story. It's our story. Because it's not just an Indian story, it's a South African story, it's a world story, it's a story about humanity as well. Because I do write a lot of philosophy, I do write blogs about things, I write quotes, I do cartoons, I do paintings, I do animation. And I'm an award-winning animator and I'm an award-winning cartoonist. So what was the question?
So you've been very influential for people that were kind of a little bit up the ladder, and you brought your words to the party. I've no doubt of that. Now, let's the book. What you said it's part of our story, right?
Yeah, it's seen through my eyes, but I take you through apartheid. I do talk about the endangered Indians. I do talk about the South African political situation. I talk about apartheid. I talk about humanity, and I talk about corruption, which is another form of apartheid. It's one of the biggest forms of apartheid in this day and age.
Yes.
I was actually destroying our country, and I also talk about my last calendar was about a brave woman who stood up to stupid men. I can speak about stupid men because all my years as a cartoonist, I've drawn a lot of stupid men. I mean, I can't even understand how they think the way they do, but it's a lot of ego.
Yeah.
A woman can take care of her own and treat it like,
Her own castle.
yes, at the castle, but she not thinking about how she can make a profit out of it. But when a man becomes the president of a country, he wants to make a profit out of it for himself, and he doesn't care if the people are starving. And then we go through different kinds of people, and then there are different kinds of excuses. We had one president who was stealing. Okay, there's an apology. Well, he had a poor background, so that's why you're stealing. And then we have another president who is so rich, he doesn't care because he's so rich. So it does not matter whether you're rich or poor, you're still not good enough because you can't think enough to run. It's all about yourself.
Yeah. But do you think that doesn't come down to absolute power corrupts absolutely?
Yes,
Or
yeah.
is that,
Absolute power.
yeah.
You can look at what's happening in America. I mean, Donald Trump, the guy's an idiot.
How do you've managed, Nanda, because of your cartoon and your caricature background in terms of bringing out a kind of social commentary in a funny, tongue-in-cheek manner, because that's the nature. You want to kind of laugh at it as well. And but there's also a message, an important message with the humor. Now that's a very difficult thing to do. How do you condense such complex social, political themes into a one-liner with a very funny image? What does that take? How do you think about it for a long time? Do you do you just come up with it? How do you do it?
No, I don't think about it for a long time. The thing is, you cannot manufacture it. It's something that just comes like that. But it's based on what you've been thinking about situations.
Yes.
You think about the situation, then you get an idea. You need to.
But do you develop these things over long? Do you overthink it, or is it something that's just like
It just comes.
it just comes?
It just comes. You can't explain it. But talking about neurons,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. If you allow your neurons to work and you don't shut, you cannot be a cartoonist if you are so strangled by bureaucracy, religion. It can also be abused by stupid people, like I said.
Yeah.
When I talk about stupid men, I'm talking about priests, politicians, presidents, whoever, and across the board, not any particular
Yeah.
religion or whatever. Religion could be a good thing because it can control people to be on the good side
Yeah.
of the world.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it has been used.
it has been abused and it's very divisive.
But don't you think religion itself, it's not a evil
man-made.
or bad concept. It's people that make it. Anything that man introduces makes it sometimes poor. Nanda, what is your advice? I was on Lotus the other day, and Nilofa asked me a question. Like, what is your advice for young artists? Because we kind of have been, we had careers because you had your animation school, which you have, and we'll talk about that just now. But what is your advice for younger generations of Indian creatives that want to carve some sort of career? That means they want to earn money as well. We kind of had to do other things, to keep ourselves going. But what is your advice to younger people?
I think the art, you're an art educator, you probably understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Is our art education is too divided in the sense that we had a fine art degree, we had a graphic design diploma, there was no animation, and animation was introduced. It was introduced as a computer. You had to learn how to use a computer, basically a tool. Okay. When I opened my school, I integrated fine art with graphic design and animation. And out of that one diploma, I had some of the finest black political cartoonists, the first black political cartoonists coming out of the school in this country, the Sowetan, the Daily News, Daily Maverick, the Citizen, the Sunday Times. They actually came from that diploma. And from the same diploma, I had award-winning animators. I've had award-winning graphic designers and creative director. One creative director from Chatsworth, I told you about him. His father was a paper. He won 17 Buris.
Wow, that's such
The same diploma is integrated because once you integrate the course, and then in your third or fourth year, they can diversify. They can become cartoonists. They can become comic artists. The comic artists at Super Strikers came from our school. The fine artists, animators. So in most of the universities, you have a separate fine art. I know I was on the board of DUT, advisory board. The fine artists did not speak to the graphic designers. So if they were doing an animation, which they don't do, if they were doing an animation, the fine artists would have to paint the background. Like with my students, some of them are background painters, same course. Some of them are the character designers.
Yes.
They're animators. And then the storyboards are done by the graphic designers. So it's all integrated. And that's lacking throughout the whole country because of the separation. The reason why they can't separate it is because the syllabus is 100 years old. And for someone to separate it, they have to have all those other qualifications to be able to. A fine art artist will tell you, oh, you're going to dilute it. The graphic designer will tell you, you're going to dilute it. It happened to me, and I know I spoke to these people. I told them why they should integrate it, and they told me, no, you're diluting it. And yet, I've trained some of the finest artists.
So your methodology, you've applied it, and
that's why they can get better jobs than the guys who are doing fine art. The guys who are doing fine art can only teach.
Okay, now tell us a little bit about the book now. Let's just talk about how are you going? I mean, you've got such an interesting time from your early history, and maybe talk a little bit about when you were in New York and how did you get there, and what did you do when you were in New York?
Yeah. First, I went to Brazil.
Okay.
Because I had an aunt in Brazil. What actually happened was my brother was supposed to go to Brazil to play football.
Okay.
My aunt had organized a trial with a famous Brazilian soccer team, Flamenco. And my brother was killed. So I basically took his place. Yeah. So I think the people were so stunned. I actually didn't think I was a good artist in South Africa. because I wasn't white. I had an inferior complex because we were fed with that thing. Everything white was good. When
Has that changed as you went along?
it changed a lot. I actually thought about it.
That mindset of being
that mindset,
other or less than somebody else. Has that changed?
It changed definitely. It changed drastically. In fact, I really think I found when I lived in New York, I spoke to a lot of white guys. I was at a cartoon conference, and the guys were talking about American guys, cartoonists were talking about Kennedy was shot by Lee. No, by Jack Ruby. I said no, it wasn't Jack Ruby. It was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
And the guy looked at me and said, "How do you know? You come from Africa."
We do history.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't know, the guy was saying, Jack Ruby shot Robert Kennedy.
Yeah.
And I said, no, it was
Lee Harvey.
Lee Harvey Oswald, and Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, wow. Then you think I learned history. Oh,
Yeah.
nothing's changed.
Yeah. So there were times when I was there and I would be correcting them. This is in New York.
Yeah.
And I would be correcting them about things.
And just for a timeline, this was in the when was it?
Early 90s.
Early 90s, okay.
Yeah. I would tell them, and then I would realize that I know more than these guys, and yet I held them in such high esteem.
Yes.
And I felt the same with my work as well.
So did that change your mindset that, hey, maybe I'm not as...
And then I realized I actually came from a worse bunch of guys. I was in New York and I was speaking to those guys, and here I was dealing with this, they were far worse. They were, these guys were racist. The place where I came from, I was dealing with a bunch of racists. And they were calling them supremacists. They were calling themselves, they were saying that they were so far more supreme than we were. And I was thinking, if you can, if guys can't think, how can they be supreme? To be able to think at that level, and not just think of yourself as yourself.
It seemed like a very basic type of mentality to
It's very
focus
basic.
on one specific group of people
Yeah.
needs.
When we saw this photograph upstairs,
Yes.
it made us think, how did they do it?
Yes.
And that is another level of thinking, because you need to have empathy. You need to think on another level where you can understand what that person is going through, no matter what race he is. But if you're a racist, you actually don't think that that person can think. It's just like us thinking animals can't think.
Yes.
Animals can think. Why do we think animals can't think? Animals, they can see, they can taste, they can take care of their kids. If they're goats, they can take care of the kids.
Yes.
They can.
But we say that animals are instinctual and humans are intellectual.
Okay, I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
The thing is, they have such fine senses. They can smell, they can taste, they can. If you go near the duckling, the duck will come after you because they protect. You know how to protect their offsprings. If whoever made that brain put so much work into creating those senses, obviously there must have been some senses to make it think.
Yeah.
Okay? When there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell, it's called What the Dog Saw.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about the same thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we think animals can't think. And that's the way racists thought about people of color, that they can't think.
Yes.
Because they did not have the capacity.
But it was convenient.
It was convenient.
It was also convenient
selfish.
to,
It was selfish and convenient. And if you're selfish and it's for your convenience, then you can't think.
yeah.
Because you are limited to see the bigger picture. You don't have the capacity to see the bigger picture because you're selfish.
And how did you manage, as an artist, to break those very those very conditioned ways that we grew up during apartheid? How have you managed to psychologically remove yourself from that, always considering yourself as less than? Because I, as being female, being of Indian origin, I struggled with that all my life.
Yeah, it's. I still struggle with it. I mean, I won all these awards as an animator, creative director
Yes.
in Manchester, London, Chicago, Athens, Istanbul, Calcutta. No one's seen me on TV. You know, I mean, had I been white or black, the whole world, all country would have seen only my awards. There's nothing. I mean, the, it's all about netball. If you switch the TV on.
So sport takes.
I mean,
in our
it's good.
society, sport.
It's good that those girls are getting some exposure. But what I'm saying is, there was nothing. I mean, it shows us that I'm still sidelined in spite of everything that I've done.
But I don't think it's just you as a person. I think visual art and what we're trying to do with the book.
Visual arts on the whole, yeah.
Is a very kind of niche.
That still comes down to stupid people. Visual arts is controlled by the higher education, and they are a bunch of idiots. I mean, there's a lady who controls DHET, who's in charge of. She wants to go around shutting down private schools that open up.
Yes.
Okay, there might be some fly-by-nights, I understand that.
Yes.
The police should do that, not her. But she should allow anyone who wants to teach to teach. If someone can learn a skill on the street, they should do it because they can get a job doing that. Because in India, they do have a regulated higher education system. But if you go into the slums, there are people teaching and it's not regulated. And those are the people who travel overseas and work as coders and stuff like that, and they bring back the dollars to India. The guys who go to the regular universities actually don't need to travel. They live in those palatial homes, they are rich, they go on holidays.
Yes.
They don't go work outside India and send money to India.
Right.
It's the poor people who go and work because they can't get work in India, so they are coders and they are computer geeks.
And the reason you feel passionately about this is because you have been subject to your animation.
They use that as an excuse because it was
the regulatory.
The regulations were used as.
And you feel there was a political motivation.
Yes, yeah. I went to a squatter camp in India and I saw them teaching 3D animation, teaching Maya. And that guy could work as an animator. And nobody went to run. The guys who are running higher education, the regulated higher education in India, won't go there to shut them down.
Yes.
And if someone is teaching on the pavement, there's a lot of pavement business taking place in the city. It's so irregular, and we have informal sector. The informal sector is bigger than the formal sector in this country. And we have higher education, which is so expensive.
Yes.
The informal people cannot afford to study. Yes. That's why we have such a big unemployment rate. We are run by a bunch of idiots, and they're all professors, academics.
So, would you say there is a need for regulation in higher education?
Yes.
There is a need for the SACWA standard units, unit standards, and all of those things that we know in education exist. But with the current, with the changes in technology, with AI taking over, a lot of those structures are going to be eroded and are going to be questioned in higher education. So I predict that there's going to be a huge changeover in their regulatory status and bodies, just in terms of universities and stuff. Do you think with the changing economy, with the unemployment growing on a daily basis, people coming out, young students coming out even with no jobs, do you feel that it is quite irresponsible of higher education to limit people who want to give skills? Is that what you say?
It's very irresponsible, it's very stupid, and it's
And there's no
short-sighted.
forethought.
There's no forethought, it's short-sighted.
That kind of policing of people
education.
who actually want to do good.
I came from a community of education that was the highest in this country, the Indian education. And yet the finest minds came out of that system that I grew up in. I mean, people like Seth Cooper and Srini Modi came from the same system that I came from.
The public education system under the apartheid.
Indian education was the best education in this country. And it was not highly regulated in the sense that teachers went out of the way to make anything happen so that kids could be educated.
Right. And where do you see this going in terms of education? Do you think that this can continue for much longer? Are you going to reopen your animation school? What's happening on that?
Okay, let me tell you about the education system. We are using a system that belongs in Europe. Okay, the regulation belongs to schools in Europe, where everything is done in a box based on regulations and rules, where there is no necessity for wisdom. So,
do you feel that model does not always become obsolete in our society?
In our informal society, it does not work.
Or in an African context?
Yeah. The indented Indians were in informal society.
Yes.
And yet we educated ourselves. Our education, higher education is totally flawed, and it's run by businessmen who can pay lots of money to have the regulations put in place because they can make a lot of money out of it.
Yes.
And they could give a few bursaries to kids from the informal sector, and then because I wanted to run an art school, I've been headhunted to. They made me sign non-disclosures and everything.
Yeah.
And I turned them down. I went to court for 5 years. I sold all my cars and everything to fight the case. But the education department was saying that I could go to court until I run out of money because they're using taxpayers' money. Every time my school was broken into, I had broken into 4 times, with all my computers stolen, all the expensive Apple Mac computers. I thought it was incidental. They took away my accreditation. When they took away my database, I could not do my annual report. So they took away my accreditation. So I appealed and I lost the appeal. I appealed, I told them what happened. I lost the appeal. I went to court 3 times over 5 years, using up all my money. In the end, I did not want to go to court.
Right.
So
because it was a lost cause, basically.
It's a lost cause. They used taxpayers' money to fight me. So this activist went to speak to Blade. So the first time they admitted that it was political. Blade said Nanda Soobben is his own worst enemy. He bit the hand that fed him, which they didn't do. He insulted the ANC, and he.
So was this related to your work, which is supposed to be in the area of freedom of speech?
Yeah, he said he disrespected the ANC and he insulted the elderly Zulu man.
Okay, so that was because of one cartoon in particular? Well,
there were a few. I had Zuma on a wall hanging down from eye wall. You can see down.
Okay.
So Zuma must fall. And I had him with his pants down saying, not guilty.
So there's a level, what you're saying basically is, Nanda, there's a level of censorship that...
Yes, yeah. And Blade at one of the rallies at Kingsmead said, anyone who does a cartoon on Zuma must be locked up. That kind of rhetoric.
Yeah. So, in light of all your experiences, how do you think you're going to continue with your, do you want to continue in education? Do you want to focus, where are you?
I don't need to continue with education, but this, the, okay, the whole idea of my philosophy is to make the world a better place.
Yes.
Okay, the school, for my talent, I didn't need a school, but the school is far more important than I will ever be, and it's so important for the school. It is also the integration of the arts, which I've done, and it's important. Nobody is doing it, and no one is going to do it in the future.
Yeah.
If a guy works, the thing about animation.
So you worry that all your work is going to basically go by the wayside if someone doesn't continue with that.
Yes. The integration of the arts is so important that if CFAD does it, that integration is there.
Especially in KwaZulu-Natal.
Especially in KwaZulu-Natal. I spoke to the guys who are putting the formula for the animation syllabus in this country.
Yes.
And they were telling me everywhere, every university is teaching animation. They're just teaching the software.
Okay.
They're just teaching you how to use the, what you call, air fryer. They're not teaching you how to cook in air fryer.
So that's a position more or less where I'm as an educator, where I teach in the art and design space that's moving very much into, obviously we know we have the technological turn that's happened, and we're obviously in a technological space, in a digital space. And a lot of the traditional hand drawing techniques are becoming kind of obsolete and are moving out of that space only to go directly into software. So you work with a stylus and a tablet, or you work with a mouse and a. How do you think that is going to affect, just in terms of our, cognitive skills as well when we do art on a physical basis of drawing? How do you think that may affect?
It's artificial intelligence. It's going to cause damage because, when a knife, you can cut your vegetables with a knife, but you can also kill someone with a knife. That's what computers will do with art. That's what they're doing. It's so important to keep the natural. You got to have a drawing class.
Do you feel traditional drawing is a necessity? Because a lot of the education institutes feels it's not anymore.
Well, it's coming from that background. The guys who own these colleges are businessmen. Are businessmen with limited art experience. They want to make a profit at the end of it.
Private school has to turn over a profit. That is the basis of it, right?
Yeah. Besides the drawing,
yeah.
There's another thing that they don't teach is perceptual studies.
How to see.
How you see things. How your negative spaces, which are so important, will actually make your positive space look better.
Yes.
Now, if you don't have negative spaces, there's color all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's primary colors all over the place. Like red, red next to blue, things like that. If you're using blue, you've got to use the negative space to make the blue come out.
Yeah.
Things like that, they don't make use of negative spaces. That's because they're not learning perceptual studies. There are so many things in perceptual studies that you need to know.
So if you cut out, say, your observation, that training on observation and perceptual studies, as you call it, the traditional, the instantaneous ability to render in pencil, what happens to the brain. It's been proved that drawing with a pencil on paper has a different mental you use different facets of your brain compared to drawing with a stylus.
You have a pencil.
I don't have one either. Yeah. But so all of that is going to be lost. And already my writing is terrible in terms of spelling because I don't need to actually handwrite anymore. Right?
That's artificial intelligence.
Do you know what I mean? So already we
got the calculator is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Stop kids from being able to count.
So not having the ability to allow a computer to basically finish a line or do a line or smooth a curve or just put information in, come up with information. It's more like a selection where an artist, or if you can call it a digital artist, more selects what the AI is producing. So you're using more of a selective brain rather than a coming up with things from scratch brain.
Yeah.
That's problematic, really.
Yeah.
And can you call yourself a true artist in that sense?
It's actually going to kill art. That's the first stage of the AI.
Yeah.
Okay. Animation is going to become so real that there won't be real movies.
With actors.
With actors. They won't. I mean, they pay actors millions to act in a movie. They can create the most beautiful actress and the most beautiful anthem actor and make them act. They're doing that. So, it's going to kill not just the animation industry, which is done already, because the animation that we are seeing is digital puppetry. It's not animation. I did a speech at the Durban Film Festival about that. I told them it's digital puppetry.
So, how are we going to bring art and integrate art? There were lots of questions we asked ourselves, and you've given us some lovely suggestions and answers and your opinion on it. But we need to continue. We need to continue.
Yeah.
Starting off with your book, also from this PhD that I'm currently doing in visual art, I'm trying to draw attention to needs. I'm from Chatsworth in Arena Park in Durban, and I'm busy with a project that I call Outreach, and I hope that we can have you on as a mentor, Nanda, if you are available, to just provide information and mentorship to students in the Chatsworth area who are interested in the arts. As you said, we have a highly regulated higher education system that's probably not servicing and killing a lot of our, maybe about 70% of our young youth and the opportunities coming out.
Imagine the higher education was also in charge of sport. Now, a talented player went to Kaiser Chiefs and he didn't have his metric. They say you can't join. Actually, when it comes to, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to art education, or any education based on talent, talent-based education, I will take on students based on talent and not if they finish metric. If he's a musician, if Stevie Wonder went to university, they'll turn him down. It has to be based on talent.
Yes.
Anyone that has a talent as an artist should join, not if you have the metric.
Right.
I had to turn away so many students. I was asked to turn them away, but I took them on.
Right.
They did not get a diploma, but they learned.
Yes.
And they are working.
So you think it would be beneficial to provide students with what they need in terms of information about different careers they can take in visual arts and design, animation. So that, and then the other one is looking at our intertextual histories, like we're in this beautiful place here that acts as a repository for all the indentured, the laborers that came, on ships in 1860 and beyond. And we've got this lovely history that it's small, but it is needed and it helps us to form our identities and know where we're from. So that's why it's so needed. So when you look at intertextual histories, it's realizing everybody's narratives and through art. And I think that looking at your education model that is more integrated, one that brings in, not interested in kind of a Western ideology of exclusion, of regulating to the point of excluding people from giving skills, not just learning, but
Also,
teaching them.
to put it in black and white, only the rich kids can go to these fancy art schools that teach computer-generated art.
Yes.
While
and afford the software and all the hardware.
For the software and the hardware. And then there's really talented kids sitting on the street.
How do you think that the histories, bringing everybody, not just Indian history, but everyone's, all those neglected histories, do you think that art has a way to kind of showcase these histories and talk about these?
My book will show the history through my cartoons and my paintings.
Yes.
And my murals.
Yes. So you have a lot to offer in that area in terms of how to do that. Nanda, it's been amazing chatting to you. Thank you for your time. It's been lovely. It's always an education talking to you. And next time you're in Durban, we're going to do more coffee.
Yeah,
and thank you so much, Nanda. This was invaluable. Thank you for your time.